the research shows has worked, is you must highlight how important personal transport is. Just those graphs that Holger showed. Quite often, people don't know. There's some signs went up at Brussels recently, and Gary had a debate with his partner about the signs in Brussels, which were telling you, today, you shouldn't be taking your, stop me if I'm wrong, about an insight into your relationship. Signs at the side of the road saying you shouldn't be driving today because there is pollution, so try and leave your car at home. And the debate, I believe, that Gary had with his partner was about the role of urban transport in pollution. Well, what's the point of me leaving my car at home? You know, it isn't about this, it's about aeroplanes, isn't it? It's about what impact do I have? And so having this, this knowledge and the actual facts, quite often the facts are assumed. They shouldn't be assumed for politicians, particularly, and individuals, and highlighting appropriate behavioural change. And then desirable behavioural change, so how do you reinforce certain factors? I've already talked about testimonials. Research shows, behavioural economics, that testimonials has real power, not only to reinforce desired behaviour, but to bring in people, tokenists, and people who don't believe it's a good idea. Example here, I used to drive to work and I always arrive at home and irritated, but now I take the train, I feel clearer. Other people have had a direct experience. Or feature stories, and they have strength. We've already on the Catch website, we've got an article from a very large school, international school in Brussels, about how they're trying to tackle climate change, the barriers they have, and the successes that they've had, and they're important. Whizzing through these, information. People are different, and there's lots in the deliverable about this. Pro-self, pro-social, people have different attitudes and values, and it's related very much to their worldviews, if they're pro-social, pro-self. And it's very important when we're designing a platform that one of the key things that we're starting to come up with in the design guidance is to be able to have some introductory questions or some thoughts that can help us to do some segmentation to people to try and understand where they are on the continuum, because they will have to get different messages and different tools. So psychological tools exist, yes, communication, we all know about that. Feedback, commitment, making a commitment. If you make a commitment to change, and that is automatically emailed to your friends, or to other people, or to a Facebook site, that has power. You've made a commitment, you've done something, and that makes a difference. Prompts are important, so prompts about, is this actually good behaviour? The example here was that this had this impact. Disincentives as well as incentives. And it's very important the use of the norm, the societal norm. Peer norms, even celebrity norms, God forbid. But people do judge themselves against other groups with the slight proviso of the comparison, which I've already mentioned, and personal norms about behaviour. So relevance to catch. What tools are used will depend on the stages of change for citizens and cities. That's very important. General communication is important for low awarenesses, general communication to change attitudes to all alternative modes, best practice, good case scenarios, cities, people where there's good awareness, much more on the commitment level, much more about prompts on alternative modes. And from the base research that we've been doing in Work Package 1, we're now starting with Work Package 2 to develop an outline design guidance. There's lots of threads here, but we have to make them real. So why do travel information systems fail? Whizzing through this, as the first quote says, we've been massively optimistic. There's a naive model of people as utility maximisers. People have limited cognitive abilities. They have real biases. So gain-loss asymmetry I've already talked about, and it's very context dependent upon me. Am I wearing my hat as a father? Am I wearing my hat as a professional? Am I wearing my hat as whatever? And people weigh up the private and external costs very differently. Well, this is one that Errol did, just to prove that context is important. Which is the biggest circle? You know that it's a catch. Both exactly the same. It's supposed to show, in an illustrative way, that our decisions, okay, this is an optical illusion, but the optical illusion is actually reflected in reality as well. It depends a lot on the context upon which you make decisions and how other information is presented around it. And as I say, it's a common thing that's coming out. It's not about transport and mobility, it's about health and lifestyle, your city, your neighbourhood, security, economic development, inclusion. There is a whole range of literature on choice architecture, where the current thinking people might have read. There is a very popular book on this, which exists in airport bookshops, on choice architecture, on nudges, and that a nudge is any small feature in the environment of information that attracts attention or just alters behaviour a slight little bit, and it's at that margin and changing the context slightly in which we get bigger behavioural change. This is the book. The guy who advised Obama and is now advising the Tory party in the UK wrote this book. But it's very much, his ideas are all about choice architecture, and it's something that we're very much buying into. It's how you frame gain and loss. Is a loss really an investment? How do you present that? People are quite happy to invest in insulation of their house, but maybe not to invest, or they see changes to public transport, for example, as a loss. So how do you see it as an investment? And there are various tools which exist which show, for example, in America, that the places that have high public transport accessibility, and if you have real robust property values, and if you factor in the costs of transport quite often, living in a certain location is not the rational thing to do. So it's how you gain, how you present gains and loss. I've already said this about how people dislike losses much more, or twice as much, as gains. And the wording is very, very important if we want to influence decisions. So the summary of findings, and I think we're nearly there with this. Summary of findings from behavioural economics show these points. Together, they seem quite abstract, but then specifically when we try and think about how we're presenting mobility to certain actors, it becomes an important way of developing our design guidance, which is a stage that we're going through now. With our core interest group cities, we'll be able to transpose their needs against our design guidance template. There are some more examples, but I think with time it's probably not great to go them all. So, in pulling it all together in what we do, we've got to recognise that people are very different, and through that guide them on appropriate paths through the site. So we very much want people to sign up, we very much want people to give input, and the site itself may become an important tool for information gathering, but we want to be able to present them with pertinent information and to nudge, change the context of the decision slightly. And that slight change can be important according to the literature. The what-if scenarios are very important, I've already mentioned that, and allow people to be able to change depending on the scenarios that we're building. What factors are important to them? As I've already said, security is one key issue. Where does greenhouse gas reduction come within that, and how can we get people to interact? And it's important that for policymakers we have to make sure that there are tools linked to certain outcomes, even if it's just ideas and nudges. One of the issues that's already come up with one of the cities is saying what really is the potential impact of this policy. And quite often it's not a menu and it's not exact science, but we can at least give some bounded results on what's happened elsewhere. That's the summary. Errol and Owen, as I say, unfortunately couldn't be here, but the report will be going up on the site. I do recommend it.